Good morning, Mrs. Casey. How are you today?
Good morning, Marty. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining me. I know TJ can't join us. Is he doing all right? Is he on a business trip?
Yeah, he's out of town this week.
All right. Probably wearing one of these masks, traveling all around. Very familiar with that. Well, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed seeing you and TJ down there a couple Saturdays ago. We went through and I did a revision like we talked about. And again, I wanted to reiterate why we're at this point here and kind of summarize what your goals for the project were. So you and TJ put an addition on the back of the house. It was a beautiful enclosed patio, so now you're spending more time outside. At the time you were putting that patio in, as bad luck would have it, your neighbor decided, the development, to no longer maintain the area behind you. For years, you've been there 13 years, they mowed the lawn back there and everything else, and now they're letting it go natural. And the grass is a foot tall, and it bothers you to sit out there, and you really want to screen that off now. Is that why we're decided to do this project?
That's exactly right.
And I know you like the garden, and it was nice to talk with somebody that actually knows and understands plants. And I know I talked to you about the challenges that we want to screen that back area, but that we've got some issues in terms of that screening because there's so much shade. We can't put evergreens in there because there's very few evergreens that will perform very well in the shade. And I think you understand that.
Yeah.
So what we came up with was a revision after talking about some ideas. And if it's okay, I'll show you that revision right now.
That would be great.
Hang on one second here. Let me get my screen to share. So this is the plan. That's the revision of the back. And I've got pictures of the plants and the other materials down here that you can see. To get your bearing point, Mrs. Casey, here's that pear tree on the left-hand side of the backyard. There's that honey locust that's actually on the neighboring property. I cited that. And then another matching pear tree down here on the end. Does this all make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, your patio and your enclosed back area is right here. So what we're talking about doing is trying to make the most out of the 3 existing trees while putting a real nice berm back here that would look good for years to come. The berm is going to be raised approximately 12 inches in the center. So in the apex of this berm, right where my mouse is, that's going to be about 12 inches tall, and it'll taper down to 0 to the back side and the front side. Does that make sense?
I think so.
The reason for that, the reason for doing that, there's 3 reasons. Number 1, the drainage. It's going to allow water, if you watch my mouse, it's going to allow water to roll along here, not travel through here, go into this dry riverbed, this cobble bed that we're putting in, and evacuate through there. So 1 is drainage. Number 2, it's going to give all these new plants some really nice soil to promote good drainage and to allow them to thrive in. And then the 3rd reason for the elevation of the berm is aesthetically. It's going to look better. And by incorporating some of these rock outcroppings that are going to look like this and this cobble here, and if you see the cobble stream through there, you can kind of make that out. And I'm going to put a copy of this drawing in the mail to you as well, because with COVID-19, you know, we're practicing social distancing, we're trying to limit meetings, but we can print this off and I can send you a copy of it so you can see it a little bit better. But for today, does that make sense, the description of what we're doing back there?
Yeah.
Many times when we do a job like this and we take advantage of existing plant material, it almost is going to look like, and I know it's going to sound crazy, it's going to look like we brought the locust and the 2 pear trees down on the end. It's going to look like we brought them in and planted them because we're incorporating them now into a bed. And right now, they're not standing out as much as they're going to stand out once we do this and do the accompanying landscaping. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Before I go further, do you have any questions, anything you're unclear on? I'm very passionate about my work, and sometimes I find I talk too fast and people don't want to interrupt me because I'm on a roll. So I thought I'd take a pause here and see if you had any questions.
I think I'd like to see what plants you've selected for the others and just know what the maintenance looks like on that. I'm worried about me and TJ doing the maintenance on it ourselves.
Yep, I understand. So it is not a no maintenance landscape, okay? But it is a low maintenance landscape. All of the plants selected here were chosen for their aesthetic beauty, but also for their ease to maintain. And I know that you like the garden some. So if you notice here, we left 2 areas for you to either do seasonal annuals. It could be sun patience. It could be wave petunias. You might even be able to get away with impatiens back there. The front side of the bed gets a lot of sun. So sun patience would probably be a better idea. Or you can turn it into a perennial garden, or if you want to plant some herbs or something in there, you might be able to get away with that as well. I think herbs would probably be better suited for the patio. The main point is, I know you like the garden, and there's a couple areas here for you to demonstrate some of your own creativity.
Great, I like that.
The perennial we picked, there's only one perennial here that we're going to use, and it's Liriope variegata. And if you look right here, there's 6 of them. There's another 9 here and another 4 here. That is this perennial right here. That is actually a semi-evergreen perennial. It's an outstanding performer, has a purple plume on it that comes out about June, July, persists for about a month or so, and then it dries up. The foliage on it is green with a creamy yellowish white edge to it. So it's very showy. It fills in, it has rhizomes, and it fills an area in pretty nicely. So the idea is going to be that those will sit down here below here, and in here, and over here. And then the highlight plants through the back, I'll explain those as follows. We got a couple of bottle brush buckeyes. There's one right here, and 2 of them over here. That's this plant right here. You are going to have some deer traveling through the back. It's deer resistant. It's not deer proof. Years ago, I used to say plants were deer proof. With this being my 37th year in business, I have come to realize and learn that a deer will eat darn near anything when they're hungry. So I don't want to mislead you and tell you that they're not completely deer proof. I have about 10 of them in my own yard. I have a herd of deer in my yard. They've never bothered them in the 14 years I've lived in my home. So I think it's a good selection. Beautiful white, 9 to 12 inch long plumes. They're stunning. They have tremendous fall color. They do get big. And I want you to understand that the maturity of these plants, this is all shown to scale. So it's showing that bottle brush buckeye almost touching these sea green junipers here, but that's in 5 to 10 years. That's not right now. These are going to be very small. We have to find the proper balance between the size of the plant material and the space that we have in the bed. So this is sized right. There is going to be some space in between them to start, and you'll have to go by the adage, and I mentioned this when I was at the house. When I was getting started in the business and I was 16, I heard a saying from a nurseryman, John Cooper, that taught me a lot. Year 1, wheat. Year 2, creep. Year 3, leaf. So if we're fortunate enough to work with you, Mrs. Casey, this landscape will really not thrive until 2022. It'll look good. It'll be on its way. Things will be healthy. But it generally takes a little bit over 2 years for everything to get rooted in properly and then start to put on its growth. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we have a buckeye here, the 2 buckeyes down here, a boulder outcropping, a feature evergreen here, which is Spring Grove arborvitae. That's the one I described to you. It was basically invented and propagated at Spring Grove Cemetery down the road in Cincinnati. I have these in my own yard. I've planted hundreds of them throughout Dayton and Cincinnati in the last 15 years. They're an outstanding performer. Here's a picture of them. They're not your typical tight, rocket-like looking arborvitae. They have a lot of interest and charm to them. And the thing that's unique about this back bed, your dining room window is right here. I want this center one to be centered on that dining room window. So when you're out there, there's almost like a perspective that you can see that it made sense. That the landscaper that came and worked in your yard paid attention to details and put that right center in the window. I think it'll look better. It'll almost be like a picture right in that dining room window. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad you're thinking about what it would look like from the inside.
Well, that's important, and that's why, with COVID-19, I wasn't able to walk through your house, but when I told you I was going to look in your windows, that's what I was doing, and that was one thing I think that made sense. So we'll have those 3 evergreens there, and then the 3 sea green evergreens, which I know you liked because we talked about those off to the side. They mature at about 6 feet tall. Those will again be down there, and they will tolerate a skosh of shade. So it's a real simple landscape. That's the whole detail there. The only other thing of note is we're going to put pine needles around these arborvitae just to give us a little bit of a definition, something different, pine straw, and then bark mulch everywhere else. There is money in the bid that I'm going to show you here in a second to alter the irrigation system. Currently, you have heads all along the back property line. There's 4 of them. We're going to have to move those and adjust those, like I'm moving the mouse there, up to the front of the bed, because the water requirements for turf are far greater than the water requirements for plants, and we actually don't want that water going over those plants. That's pretty much the explanation of the project. I'm going to be quiet and see what questions you might have.
I think you answered a question I had, which was how long it'll take to mature. So you think about 3 years before it's really grown in well?
3 years it'll be growing in well, but this is going to be something that 10 years from now still should look nice and you won't have to do any alterations.
Okay, great. And then we're going on a vacation in September. I think I mentioned that to you when we met, but I just want to, do you know what the timeline for installation is? I'm worried about all this getting into the ground and then us not being home to water it.
I understand. That's totally fine with us. I think you said you're back on September 11th.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about starting in a week. We don't give an exact day because there's so many things that are moving in our schedule. The weather, a project goes on long. We don't work in a controlled environment, so we end up with a lot of variables. So we could start shortly after that September 11th. I would say it would be sometime between September 11th and September 18th. We would start. It'll take 3 days on site to get the job done unless it rains. And if it does rain, it depends on how wet it gets to where we might be delayed. But one thing I will tell you, we will not do, you will not be frustrated with us in terms of our lack of communication, and we will not start a job and disappear or anything of the sort. We will not start your job till all your plants are in, everything's ready to go, and we can come down there and systematically get this thing done so that we can get it in the hours that we bid it, so we do what we need to do, but more importantly, so we don't upset the client and do a nice job.
Great.
Any other questions or concerns or something on here that you don't like or you're worried about?
No, I think the drawing looks great.
And again, I'll drop this in the mail to you. Would it be okay if I showed you the pricing?
Yeah, that would be great.
So I've been doing this a long time. This one actually came out a little bit less than I thought it would in terms of the pricing. I was pleasantly surprised there. We're going to remove the existing plant material within the scope of the landscape design. We're going to cut the beds out and add grow mix and rototill that like I described for the 3 reasons: the drainage, the good soil for the plants to do well in, and the aesthetic part. We're going to install the new plant materials. We're going to use a granular pre-emergent to keep the weeds down. We're going to put 3 inches of mulch over that. We'll install the granite cobbles and the boulders that we saw on the plan there. Leaf compost will go in those annual areas so you can plant and do whatever gardening you want. And then, of course, around the spring grove arborvitae, I told you we're going to put pine straw. If you look through the proposal here, you'll see it's the spring grove arborvitae, the bottlebrush buckeye, the sea green junipers, the variegated liriope, the 15 yards of grow mix to get us our raised bed back there, some small medium boulders, some medium boulders, some small boulders, the granite cobbles, the mulch, compost, a dump fee. There's about 700 square feet of seeding we're going to have to do. When we go in your backyard, it's going to disturb the turf. We're going to fix all that up. Pretty straightforward. Bottom line comes to $92.45 with the mandatory contribution to Uncle Sam. Another $647.15. Grand total comes to $98.92.15. I wasn't doing anything there. When you said you had a budget of $11,000, I didn't need to use all that. We may have to use some of that. I want to show you the irrigation proposal. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
There's a 1-year warranty on all the plant material. There's a 90-day warranty on the perennials. But I want to tell you something about Grunder Landscaping. If you call me a year from now and you say 3 of your liriope are dead, we're going to come down and we're going to replace the Lariat. Okay, we are looking for relationships, not transactions. It's all laid out there. We need a third down to start. And then the other thing to show you is the irrigation repair. The only way, Mrs. Casey, that we can accurately bid that is on a time and materials basis. So it'll be $70 per hour for us to do the irrigation repair. And however long it takes is what we're going to bill you. I do not think that's going to be anywhere near $900 to do that. If I had to guess, it's 1 day for Eric, our irrigation technician, and that means 8 hours. That's $560. I don't even know that it's going to get to that. We will be extremely fair with you, but I want to prepare you for what it's going to be. And if you're home, you'll know exactly what we're doing, and I can go over it with you. The last thing we would want would be for you to feel that we overcharge you for some irrigation adjustments. We're going to have to do them. We got to be paid to do them, but we're going to be fair.
Okay.
That's pretty much what I had for you today. I have all the time in the world. Any questions? Any other clarity? I don't have to have an answer today, Mrs. Casey, because we're not going to start tomorrow. And I've done really well just telling clients and prospects what we can do and informing them and letting them make up their own mind. I do not want you to feel pressured today. If you wish to say go ahead, we can get it signed up. But please don't think you have to do that today with me on the Zoom call.
Okay, I think I would just like to talk to TJ about it before we make any commitments, but I can do that and then I'll get back to you.
Okay, and I'm happy to jump back on a Zoom call. I'm also happy to run back down there if that's what it takes, and we sign it up, I collect a deposit, whatever I can do. We're using Zoom to keep things safe, but I want you to know we're still here to serve you. And even though it's COVID-19 and some things have changed, we'll do whatever it takes to make sure you're well informed, and, I can run down there again if need be.
Okay, great.
All right. I'll give you a couple days. If I don't hear from you by next Tuesday, I might give you a call. Is that okay?
That's fine.
All right. Well, it's been real nice talking to you. Tell TJ hi, safe travels home wherever he is. And I know you're learning how to be a yoga instructor. I hope that's continuing to go well, and have fun. My daughters love the yoga stuff. They get into that. So that's neat that you're doing it. I don't think I can do it. I don't bend very well.
All right. Well, thanks, Marty. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Mrs. Casey. Have a great day.
You too.